A historic property brings Kendall to Gabe's small Colorado town, but can anything he says convince her to stay? Find out in Carla Laureano's new book, Provenance. Kendall Green is an interior designer with an uncanny ability to discover the provenance of any piece. Despite all her hard work, her business is struggling. But an unexpected inheritance might offer a timely solution. A grandmother she never knew left Kendall property in a tiny Colorado town. Young Mayor Gabe Brandt is desperate to save his small town of Jasper Lake from a developer who wants to turn it into a summer resort. When he learns that one of the town's most prominent former citizens left her property to her granddaughter, Gabe is sure he can enlist Kendall to his cause. Until Gabe realizes she knows nothing of her own history. In order to save his beloved town, Gabe must first help Kendall unravel the truth of her own provenance. And Kendall must learn that in order to embrace the future, sometimes you have to start with the past. Provenance by Carla Laureano is available wherever books or ebooks are sold. Or visit Tyndale.com. That's TYNDALE.com for more information about this Christian contemporary romance. Provenance by Carla Laureano is available now.
Welcome to Story Chats at Inspi Romance. I'm Elizabeth Madry, and I'm here with my two co-hosts.
I'm Narelle Atkins.
I'm Valerie Comer.
Joining us today is Liz Johnson. By day, Liz Johnson is a marketing manager. She makes time to write late at night. That's when she thinks best anyway. Liz is the author of more than a dozen novels, a New York Times best-selling novella, and a handful of short stories. She's a Christie Award finalist and a 3-time ACFW Carol Award finalist. She makes her home in Phoenix, Arizona, where she enjoys exploring local musical theater, theater. It's a little different.
All of the above.
All of the above. Okay, good. Phew. And doting on her nieces and nephews. She writes stories of true love filled with heart, humor, and happily ever after. Thank you so much for joining us, Liz.
Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Today, we are talking about Beyond the Tides, which just released this week. It is book 1 of a new series set on Prince William Island. I can't talk right now. Prince Edward Island. It's not Prince William. Funny fact, I live in Prince William for county. So that's where that triggers. When I start saying sense. Prince, I go William. So Prince Edward Island. Tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write the story and what the series is going to be.
Sure. So I first visited Prince Edward Island in 2010. And I fell in love, and I never planned on writing books set there. And then I had so much fun writing about it and having a good excuse to go back that I just kept writing there because there's something really magical about the island. Like they call it the gentle island because there's this kind of slower pace to life. The story I love to tell is that my mom and I, on our first trip, we were driving along this little 2-lane road up along the North Shore, and all of a sudden my mom yelled, "Stop!" And I was driving and I was like, "Well, what's going on?" And she's like, "Look at that house." And there's like this giant house. It's like a castle. It's got turrets. It's crazy. And I was like, "Whoa." And she's like, "I want to take pictures." And I said, "Great." And I was like, "There's nowhere to pull off the road. I'm just going to stop in the middle of the road." Mom gets out. She takes pictures. Nobody comes along. Nobody cares that we're stopped in the middle of the road. And for me, that is like the essence of PEI, is like that you can be still and be alone and like actually have quiet. And I live in a city where, there's a fire station just down the road from me. So I hear fire trucks all the time, and I'm thankful for them. They're doing great work, but it's not especially quiet. And so there's something about PEI that is just this opportunity to be still and to find peace that I have just always appreciated. So I loved returning to PEI. I had written a previous series, the Red Door Inn series set on PEI. And so when it came time to talk about a new series, I said, "Can I go back? I want to go back." And my editor was like, "I think that's a great idea." And I said, "Good." So so my new series is about the 3 Ross brothers. The oldest brother is Eli, the middle brother is Oliver, and the youngest is Levi. And 10 years before the start of the first book, their father left. He left their family. He turned his back on everything that he knew. He stole from his employer. He just left in a mess, and he left a mess behind him. He left a lot of debt. He left a lot of pain and anger. And so this series is really about how these three brothers each dealt with that in different ways, and how they deal with their anger and how they deal with their hurt and their frustration and really their hopes for family, because they all long for family, but when they lost their dad, it was like their mom did the best she could to hold them all together, and she did a wonderful job. But each of them just had to deal with kind of that struggle. And so, of course, as special women come into their lives, that kind of instigates this need to really deal with what happened in the past.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Narelle, I think, has our next question.
Yes. So, but before I actually ask the question, I'm actually going to read a quote because it's fun to read quotes occasionally. So, my question relates to spiritual themes in the story.
Sure.
So, that's the thing about forgiveness. It's a renewable resource. The act of giving it fills you up to give it again. The more you practice forgiveness, the more you have to give, which I think is a fabulous quote from the book that really sums up the theme of forgiveness in a lot of ways. And this is actually being said in the story by Kyle, who's a minor character. So they end up on her father's fishing boat, and Kyle worked for her father for many, many years and knows both the hero and heroine in the story quite well. And so probably in the story, both Meg and Oliver, they really struggle with forgiveness and letting go of grudges. So my question is, can you expand on the forgiveness theme in the story without giving away too many spoilers?
Sure. Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's fair to say that Meg is a world champion grudge holder. She has.
I could get that impression.
Yeah.
She's been hanging on to hurt feelings for 10 years. And, I know that, as someone who believes what the Bible says, that that's not healthy and it's not good. But I think it's something that a lot of us struggle with. And it is not necessarily something that I personally struggle with. I tend to be that person who's like immediately apologizing. I'm much more an Oliver. I'm much more like, let's make peace. Let's solve this. I don't want there to be hurt feelings between us. But I know a lot of people and have people in my life who I love dearly that is hard for them to apologize and to offer forgiveness when they've been hurt. And so I know that it's something that even believers struggle with. And so for me, it just felt like a really real theme that people really deal with. And so I wanted to make Meg realistic in that and not just have her be, oh, it's no problem that you ruined a science fair project that was going to win me this scholarship and give me an opportunity to pursue my dream of going to an Ivy League school and all of these things that she had in mind for her life. And but ultimately, I think that there are usually layers to forgiveness in terms of layers to hurt. It wasn't this one thing that hurt her. That was the thing she could kind of cling to and identify, this is the way that you hurt me. But throughout the story, she also comes to realize that there are other things going on in her life that are so painful that she doesn't know how to deal with them. So she keeps going back to this thing that is easier for her to hold on to. And ultimately, I just wanted to tell a story about, that said that it's possible to get past grudges, that forgiveness is the better choice, that it does free us, that oftentimes we are, I've heard it said that forgiveness is the thing that frees us from the prison that we're in. And we're the ones in the prison, not the person that we can't forgive. And so I just really wanted to, I wanted to tell that story of forgiveness, that it is worth it. And that ultimately, digging into what is really the source of your pain is probably, and dealing with that is going to help you deal with feelings of unforgiveness too.
Yeah, I really loved how, and I think you've really drawn it out, how it's like an onion. You're taking off the layers. So as you move through the story, we start off with something that can feel a bit superficial at the beginning, but once you keep reading, you just see, wow, there's just so much beneath the surface. Like an iceberg you see above the ocean, but there's all this stuff underneath. And it was very much, like that.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Valerie, you're up.
There's no transition over to me. So I was really interested in the mentorship aspect. Meg's parents know how Meg feels about Oliver, and yet both of them have reached out to Oliver and his family, and her dad in particular had hired Oliver to work on his lobster boat, which I don't know if we've really clarified that that's the setting, that they're in competition for her dad's business as a lobster fisherman. You fish for lobster? Anyway, they're not fish. Let me think this one. So Oliver has worked for Meg's dad for a while. I don't remember for exactly how long, but long enough to understand the business. Definitely not just like last week.
Right, like 6 or 7 years, I think.
Yeah. And so her dad offers Oliver generous terms for buying out this lobster business. I'm just really curious about how mentorship, like, have you experienced that kind of a grand mentorship, or what was the background or the trigger for that type of relationship?
Wow.
It's
I can't put my finger on one person in my life who has mentored me in that same way.
right.
But I can think of a lot of examples of people who saw in me more than I saw in myself. And I think that that's true of Oliver. Walt Whitaker, Meg's dad, sees in Oliver so much potential, and he wants to invest in that. And I just think about like all the times through my writing career where people have invested in me when I didn't feel like I had anything to offer. And I mean, in some ways it's my parents. When I had just graduated from college and I had a degree in public relations, and I was trying to find a job, and I got my first job in marketing, and it was going fine. But my mom knew that I wanted to be a writer, and her brother told her about this writing course. Jerry Jenkins owned the Christian Writers Guild, and for a time they had a 2-year correspondence course. And my mom said, if you want to take that course, your dad and I will pay for it for you.
Oh.
And I was like, no, I can't ask you to do that. And she said, I see in you a desire to pursue this. If you want to do this, we'll invest in you. And it was the most like generous moment of my life, where it was like, at the time, my parents had just put 3 kids through college. And I was like, what are you thinking? Like, I'm not sure I'm worth this. I'm not that good of a writer. And yet my mom saw in me a desire and potential, and wanting to get better at my craft. And so she helped me find a way to hone those skills and to grow as a writer. And, and here we are, gosh, I took that course back in 2003, 2004. And so, here we are 17, 18 years later, and God has clearly used that. So I think really when I looked at Oliver and Walt Whitaker, I just said, like, what does he see that no one else can see? What does Walt see that no one else can see in Oliver? And I think that that's a really special gift. I've had a lot of people in my life who have just spoken truth over me, and just my best friend is especially good at this. And she will just pull me to the side and say, I just want to speak this over you. And I'm like, I don't feel worthy. I don't feel good enough for that. But the thing is that God is using us, whether we feel it or not, whether we feel like we're worthy of being used or not. And so for me, I think that was really a big part of this story, was to see potential in somebody who nobody else does. And, and it's been a joy of my life to get to be a mentor to, to some up and coming writers. And I don't like to use that label because I feel like I'm not there yet. I'm not good enough to be the mentor. But I started a writers group when I moved to Phoenix 3 years ago, and it has grown into this little hub, and there's several who are published and several who aren't, but we keep adding ladies who desire to be published, who desire to really grow in their craft. And I realized a few weeks ago, we were meeting and somebody said, "Oh, whenever Liz talks, be quiet." And I was like, what do you mean? And they're like, "No, you're going to say something wise." And I was like, "No, probably not." But I do have, more than 10 years of experience in this industry, and I see in them potential and a desire, and I want to help foster that. And so I think that that's a real joy, is that mentorship relationship, even if it's not like classified as mentorship, like how you speak into others' lives can make a world of difference. And showing that you believe in them, I think really helps them believe in themselves. And I sure know that, like, when my parents did that for me, back in 2003, that set me on the road to publishing my first book. So
here you are.
Yeah. And Beyond the Tides is book number 20. So, it's like, here we are 20 books later, and I can look back on that single event and say, thanks, Mom. Like, it made a world of difference for me.
And you said that she went with you to Prince Edward Island as well, right?
Yes. So I had told my mom. So my mom got me hooked on Anne of Green Gables when I was a kid, as moms do.
Yeah.
And I watched the movies just all the time when I was a kid, from the time I was 12 on, probably. And but I had never read the books. And then I went to college, and where I worked in Orlando for a semester. I was going to school in Arizona, so there was no one nearby, and I was really lonely. And so I called my mom, "Would you send me some books?" And she said, "Well, what do you want?" And I said, "Anything, just send me some books." She sent me her cherished Anne of Green Gables collection. And it had been like sitting on her bedside for entire childhood. And so I read those all by myself. I was working at Walt Disney World, and it was like Lifeline, this friend that I needed in those, like, in a really lonely time in my life. And so anyway, so I told Mom, when I sold my first book, I would take her to Prince Edward Island to celebrate. And she laughed at me. And I'm not sure if it's because she didn't think I would spend my money on her, or if it's because she didn't think I was going to get published. But either way, I did get published, and I did take her, and we had a wonderful time, and it's inspired all these other books.
Neat.
Right.
Yeah.
Will we see people from the Red Door Inn series in the Beyond the, what is the series name for Beyond the Tides?
Series? Yeah, it's Prince Edward Island Shores is the new series. And I was hoping to include some in the first book, but it didn't work out. So you won't see anybody familiar in the first book. But if all goes as planned, I am currently writing the second book, and some of our dear friends, including the Red Door Inn, have shown up. And so I'm super excited to return there and to check in with just a few of our favorite characters. And of course, we won't dive into what's going on in their lives, but it is sure fun to find, little kids running around the inn and, things like that. So, yeah.
Excellent. Very good. All right. So, did you two have other questions that were not on our script? Because if not, we're going to move into the this or that portion of the evening, which is always fun.
I'm done.
All right.
I mean, that sounds terrible, but
You're ready for this or that.
Yes.
there we go.
All right. So for this or that, Liz, all you have to do is just answer your choice.
Okay.
You may expound upon your answer if you like to,
Okay.
but don't think too hard. We want like a gut response.
Okay.
All right. And there shouldn't be anything scary, but I
Oh.
haven't vetted anyone's questions. So I'm not actually promising, but I know these ladies well enough to think that there's probably nothing scary.
Okay.
So
All right.
Narelle, do you want to go first?
I'll go first. Okay. So lobster or oysters?
Oh, neither.
That's not the right answer.
No, I know, right? I am like the oddball out who I don't eat a lot of seafood, and I've tried lobster and I thought I would love it, and I did not. But it probably goes back to the fact that I had been out lobster fishing that day and I had held a live lobster. And then when I sat down at dinner and his cousin is like staring me in the eyes, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So I'm probably neither. Sorry.
Well, I'm both. So there you go.
You've got it covered.
That's outstanding. All right, Valerie.
Are you more likely to read a cowboy or a billionaire?
Ooh, a cowboy.
Thank you.
Those darn cowboys.
I mean, not that there was a wrong answer.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I know that there's an audience for both, but me personally, I don't need somebody who is drowning in money. I want somebody with a lot of heart. And I find that cowboys have a lot of heart, and they tend to be gentlemen. And I always like the gentlemen.
There you go.
Gentlemen who smell like horses.
But you don't smell it in the story. We've already had this conversation. You smell book pages or Kindle.
I'm the resident not cowboy girl, in case you wonder.
I was picking up on that. Yeah.
All right. So mine is Gilbert Blythe or Mr. Darcy.
Oh, Gilbert Blythe. Yeah. I mean, I totally understand Mr. Darcy's appeal, and I love Pride and Prejudice. But I also recognize that Anne of Green Gables is not a romance. And so Gilbert isn't as fleshed out as maybe Mr. Darcy or other romantic heroes. So a lot of people don't like Gilbert Blythe, but he is the most loyal, and he's smart. He's so smart, but he doesn't have to be smart by putting Anne down. Like, he's smart and builds her up, and he's so loyal. He's so, yeah. Oh, he's dreamy. Dreamy.
I would say that of the Anne series, because my favorite in the series is Anne of Windy Poplars, and he is absolutely a romantic figure in that. I mean, they're already engaged at that point, but I do see him as a romantic figure in Windy Poplars.
Yeah, in the later books. You're right. You're right.
But that's what's so fun about it, the whole Anne series, is you actually see the relationship from when they're really young all the way through to their children. So you get the whole sort of life cycle in the series, which is so fun.
I just thought of a question we should have asked.
Ask.
So the whole all these books, four and a novella, I believe, set in Prince Edward Island, and there is not a single mention of Anne of Green Gables.
Oh, sure there is.
There isn't?
Oh, there is. Yeah. Yeah. So in the Red Door Inn, Marie, who's the main character, she escapes her terrible past in Boston, and she brings her copy of Anne of Green Gables with her. And that's why she wanted to go to PEI, is because she grew up reading this book. And then later, when she's decorating the inn, they have a Lucy Maud Montgomery suite where where they have quotes and they have like old copies of the book. I love like a good cloth cover, hardback of, one of the classics. And to find a first edition is like ridiculously expensive, circa 1908 or whenever it came out. But I think that, so anyway, so I definitely have mentioned Anne, and I'm trying to remember if there's a mention in the new book. I think maybe not.
I don't.
But
I don't remember.
There will be in the second book.
Okay, because I thought I heard from you or from someone that the Lucy Maud Montgomery establishment wouldn't allow people to use her characters or her fiction.
Yes. That is true. That is true. So I can reference the book as a fact, as, because titles aren't copyrighted. And so I can reference it as this is true. There is a book out there called Anne of Green Gables. There is a redheaded orphan that everybody loves. And, she's precocious and all this. And so I can reference that. What I can't do is initially I had worked on, before I wrote The Red Door Inn, I wrote a different story that was also set on PEI that had more inner, anyway, it was called, the book was called Searching for Green Gables, and they would not let me use that. So, but as it turned out, no publishers wanted to publish that book. So, so then The Red Door Inn came around, and that worked.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So when will book 2 in the, you told me,
Prince Edward Island Shores.
When will book 2 be out?
Yeah. Book 2 comes out August of 2022.
Okay, so roughly a year apart.
About a year.
And then book 3. Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. Did we're coming close on perfect timing. Did we want to do one more round of this or that real fast before we go?
Why not?
Because it's fun to put people on the spot.
Yeah.
All right, Narelle.
Okay, so my question this time is, would you rather be on a beach on Prince Edward Island or a beach in Hawaii?
I have never been to Hawaii, but I am guessing I would pick Prince Edward Island every time. I'm not particularly a beach person so much as, I don't like to just sit in the sand on the beach, but PEI has all these beautiful hiking beaches where you can walk and you can explore, and they're just stunning. So yeah. Oh, and the red rocks on PEI, the views are so varied. It's you'll have sand and you'll have red sand over here and rippled red sand, and then you've got these big giant red rocks over here, and there's just a lot of variety to the beach and the shoreline there. So I would pick PEI.
Yeah, it's like hot beach or cold beach.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of variety, but all of it's red. Got it.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple white beaches too.
All right, Valerie, do you have another?
I do. Are you more likely to write a best friend sibling or falling for the nanny?
Oh, best friend sibling. That is my favorite trope. Hands down, one of my absolute favorite tropes is falling for your older brother's best friend. Yeah. I think it started because when I have an older brother, and when I was a kid, I had crushes on all of his friends. They were all around the house all the time, and they were super cute and fun. And so, yeah, so definitely, older brother's best friend.
Excellent.
There we go.
All right. So I started reading your books when you were still writing for LIS.
Oh, okay.
So, straight up romance or romantic suspense?
Both. I mean, I like both. I like that I have done both. I read both. I right now, the stories that I have to tell seem to fit more just with contemporary romance. But I do like to incorporate a little mystery, and every now and then I love to throw in, a moment of suspense or something, but an equal balanced romantic suspense. I haven't done one in a few years, but I always enjoyed writing them. And so I hope to maybe someday get to write some more. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Thank you for this, for coming and for hanging out with us and having a chat. And we all enjoyed your book. We all got to read it, which was lovely.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
Thank you to your publisher for that, because that was lovely of them.
Thank you. Yes, Revell is wonderful.
Can you tell everyone where they can find you in your books and stay on top of news and all of that?
Sure. Yeah. So my website is generally up to date, and that's at lizjohnsonbooks.com. I have a newsletter that I send out, and you can sign up for that on my website, lizjohnsonbooks.com. And then I'm on Facebook and Instagram and sometimes Twitter at Liz Johnson Books.
That's nice and convenient. It's
Yeah.
all the same.
Yeah.
That's
all
excellent.
the same.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much. And if you're listening or watching, we'd love to have you leave a question. If you have a question, maybe we can convince Liz to come check the comments after the episode airs, just in case. That would be lovely if you would. Thank you guys for joining us at Story Chats. You can find information about the podcast at inspiromance.com/storychats. And if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. In the meantime, we'll see you next week. And don't forget to fall in love with a good book. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Thanks
everyone.
for having me.